Good night, boss. I was talking a story about Ameir Ahmad, sheriff's son. Boss, I build a hospital for you, right? I got 99% of the job. You rob me 2 week money, $1 million and change. I got pay work, man. I take money out of my pocket, pay work, man. When you going to pay me, boss? Yeah, Ameir? But don't fight up. Just time with your boss. Just time. You're talking about Muhammad, You're better than nobody. You own so much of thing here, rob people, yeah? When you go pay me, please pay me. Because me and you going to reach.
You know, there's a silent, often unwritten law that sort of underpins everything in the working world. Honest work for honest pay. It's the bedrock, right? The basic expectation.
It is. But what happens when that bedrock just cracks?
Well, that's when you get the kind of fallout we're looking at today. It can be immediate and for independent workers, just devastating.
And that collapse is exactly what our deep dive is tackling. We've got sources detailing a very public, very specific dispute. It's about a contractor in Corentyne who's claiming non-payment for jobs he says are done.
So this isn't just about a missed invoice somewhere.
Oh, not at all. It's a local story that, it exposes these vulnerabilities that are, frankly, global.
So our mission for you, the listener, is to go a bit beyond the headlines of this one financial fight.
Exactly. We're here to really understand the acute, almost paralyzing impact that delayed payment has on small operators.
We're going to use this case study to look at timely payment, not just as, a number on a spreadsheet, but as a crucial legal and moral obligation.
An obligation that, when it's ignored, can threaten a family's entire livelihood.
And the source material is key here.
It is. It gives us the contractor's public statement, and just as importantly, commentary from the publication that really frames this whole thing.
So it puts a human face on it.
Puts a human face on what happens when a contract fails. And that's what makes it so powerful.
Okay, let's unpack this Corentyne claim. Let's see what the details tell us.
Let's do it.
So we should start with the person at the very center of this. His name is Nascimento. He's a contractor operating out of a place called 72 Village in Corentyne. And he's taken this pretty extraordinary step of going public with his frustration.
Which tells you he's probably exhausted other options.
It certainly suggests that. He's alleging he's owed payment for work done over a pretty significant period.
And the sources lay out the alleged arrangement, right?
They do. Nascimento claims he completed these different contracted jobs, and he was acting under instructions that he says came from a man named Ameir Ahmad and his associates.
So, pretty standard setup, it sounds like, common in the industry. Once the job's finished, payment follows?
Right. A classic completion-based agreement.
But not so classic in the follow-through, apparently.
Well, according to his account, the work was done, but the money it never materialized. He says he's followed up repeatedly, but the compensation isn't there. That's why he's making this public appeal.
And this is where it really shifts from a business dispute to something much more personal. The source includes this incredibly powerful quote from Nascimento himself.
Let's hear it.
He says, "I am a hardworking man. I did the job honestly and expected to be paid for my labor."
Wow.
I mean, that just distills the whole thing down, doesn't it? It's not just about money. It's about a profound violation of trust. He feels he did his part.
He met his commitment and the other side didn't. When you look at that quote, you really see that expectation of reciprocity.
Yeah.
It's not about getting rich. It's about getting what was promised for time and sweat that you've already put in.
Yeah.
So let's move from that specific claim to the ripple effect, because this is where the consequences get really severe. Nascimento states very explicitly that this non-payment has placed a crippling financial strain on him and his family.
And that jump from a line item on a commercial ledger to the stability of a family, that is the absolute crux of this issue.
Right.
For a huge corporation, a delayed payment might be a bad entry on a quarterly report. For a small contractor, it could be a missed mortgage payment, trouble buying school supplies.
Or even putting food on the table.
Or, worst of all, an inability to eat. It's that direct.
And the source material we have really highlights why independent contractors are so vulnerable in these situations.
They just don't have the cash reserves. There's no cushion like a large organization has.
So let's get into the economics of it, because it's not just about replacing income. It's about business continuity.
It's all about cash flow. or what the source material kind of implicitly calls the job-to-job vulnerability.
Okay, break that down.
Well, there are three critical things that happen immediately when a payment is withheld. First, the obvious one. Your ability to support your household just evaporates.
Sure.
But second, and this is just as damaging, it interrupts your future pipeline of work.
Explain that interruption. How does not getting paid for Job A stop you from even starting Job B?
Because small contractors often have to front the money for materials for the next project using the revenue from the last one.
Oh, okay.
So let's just use a hypothetical example, in the spirit of the source. Imagine Nascimento needs, say, $1,000 for rebar and cement to start foundation work on Job B next week.
Right.
If the client from Job A hasn't paid the $5,000 he's owed, he can't physically buy those materials.
So Job B is dead in the water.
It stops immediately. Even before the issue with Job A is sorted out, the company that owes him is effectively stalling his entire business.
It's a paralyzing domino effect. They're not just hurting his personal finances, they're cutting off his ability to make money from anyone else.
Precisely. And the third point the source brings up is the contractor's role in the local community.
How so?
These small operators, they hire local guys, they buy from local suppliers, they keep skills and money circulating right there in their area. When their financial engine stalls, all that economic activity, it just grinds to a halt with them.
It really hammers home that lack of a financial buffer. If you're living job to job, how long can someone like Nascimento even survive this? Weeks, days.
And that is the important question raised by the publication's commentary. For someone relying on that cash liquidity, they might only have a cushion of a few weeks, maybe a month.
And
Then you hit critical failure. You can't pay your suppliers, can't pay any sub-laborers you might have hired, and you definitely can't meet your own household bills. A delay that's a procedural footnote for a big developer becomes an existential threat for the contractor.
that's such a sharp distinction. A major firm's accounting headache versus a contractor's household economy collapse.
It really is.
Yeah.
It shows why contract integrity isn't just some corporate buzzword. It's about protecting vulnerable people inside that bigger economic structure. It forces you to ask, what happens when the system penalizes the hardworking individual?
Which brings us to how Carl Nascimento is trying to find a resolution. The source material is careful to emphasize his approach here. It says he is not seeking conflict. He simply wants the money he says he's owed, and he's calling for this to be resolved fairly and respectfully.
And that phrasing, fairly and respectfully, is so key, isn't it?
It seems to be.
It suggests he wants the other party to recognize the human cost here, to come back to the moral grounding of their original promise instead of forcing him into some big legal fight he probably can't afford.
And the publication takes that sentiment and runs with it. They really amplify it by talking about the broader ethics involved. They highlight this duality of the obligation to pay.
They do. They make it crystal clear. They say payment is, yes, a legal obligation. A contract means you are required by statute to pay for services. But they immediately pair that with the statement that it is also a moral one.
Why do you think they lean so hard on the moral side of it? Does that suggest the legal path is just too hard for someone like Nascimento? Too slow, too expensive?
I think that's a really insightful take on it. For a small contractor already under financial strain filing a lawsuit, I mean, even if you have a rock-solid case, it costs money up front.
Legal fees.
And time. Time away from other jobs.
Time away from jobs you could be doing to chase money you should already have. The legal route often makes the hardship last even longer. By highlighting the moral obligation, the publication is appealing to a faster, simpler resolution. Just do the right thing.
It's an appeal to conscience over court costs.
Exactly. It implies that, look, regardless of what the paperwork says, the ethical duty to pay someone for their labor is absolute.
And the source does offer a path forward, trying to bridge that gap. It suggests that if the delay is a genuine misunderstanding, maybe an issue with the quality or the scope of the work, then open dialogue is what's needed. The hope is that just talking can lead to a resolution without, as they say, further hardship.
Open dialogue sounds simple, but I guess in this context, it just means stop the silence.
It means moving past the dispute and back into functional communication. It means both sides have to commit to finding a solution that actually honors the work that was performed.
It's really a call for the more powerful party, the one holding the money, to engage transparently.
Right, rather than hiding behind silence or bureaucracy. But at the end of the day, this entire story, this whole deep dive, it just keeps circling back to this one powerful, undeniable principle.
Which is?
The final statement from the commentary.
Hard work deserves fair pay.
Hard work deserves fair pay. It's so simple, but it's the measuring stick for the integrity of every single economic relationship.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
I think it means that this dispute in Corentyne is a perfect microcosm. It shows just how fast the most vulnerable people in the economic chain, the self-employed, the micro-businesses, suffer these severe family-level consequences when the payment system breaks down.
It shows how fragile those relationships are when they're built more on trust than on a solid legal structure. So we've laid out the specifics. Contractor Carl Nascimento, the claims against Ameir Ahmad and associates, and that devastating dual-strain personal hardship and economic disruption.
And we've talked about the difficulty of relying on the legal system versus appealing to a moral obligation.
Yeah.
What's really fascinating here is that while we can hope for dialogue, small operators have to protect themselves proactively. Carl Nascimento is now relying on public pressure. But for you, the listener, especially if you do any kind of contract work, here's a final thought to chew on. What concrete safeguards can you put in place before you even lift a hammer?
Safeguards to protect yourself from this exact job-to-job vulnerability.
It's
Well, we mentioned the difference between a verbal agreement and a written one. I mean, let's get into that. A handshake deal is just... It's too easy to dispute or ignore.
So a formalized written contract is your shield.
It has to define the deliverables, sure, but more importantly, it has to define payment schedules that actually work with a contractor's cash flow.
Yes, absolutely. The critical step is implementing payment milestones. Progress payments.
So you're not waiting until the very end for all the money.
You can't.
Okay.
Instead of waiting for 100% completion to get 100% of the payment, which is devastating if that last invoice is delayed.
Right.
A good contract demands, say, 25% upfront for materials, another 25% when the foundation is done, and so on. It shifts the risk away from the contractor and incrementally back onto the client.
That makes perfect sense. It manages that liquidity crisis we were talking about. If the client delays at milestone 3, well, you've at least been paid for milestones 1 and 2. The damage is contained.
The damage is minimized. And one final point on legal recourse. It's worth understanding the benefit of specific clauses in those contracts. We mentioned binding arbitration. This is a crucial tool.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that if a dispute happens, you don't have to go through years of expensive litigation in a public court.
Instead, you agree beforehand to resolve it with a neutral third-party arbitrator. It's faster and cheaper.
It's usually much faster and cheaper. So look, understanding how to use these tools, detailed contracts, payment milestones, streamlined resolution like arbitration, it can fundamentally shift the power dynamic for a small operator.
It replaces hoping for the best.
It replaces reliance on hope and public appeals with clear, enforceable protection against the very real threat of living job to job.
That's the real lesson from Corentyne, then. While we can and should debate the moral failing of delayed payment,
The smartest path forward is preemptive protection, rigorous contracting. Something to really think about the next time you sign a business agreement.